Next man up, 102.5 The Game. Happy Friday, Nashville. Jake Lyman and Parker Kelley with you, broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville Studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Got a fun show planned for you today. It is NHL Draft Day. Max Herz from Preds Radio going to join us in the final hour of the show to talk all things Preds and get ready for tonight's draft in Buffalo, where the Preds, as of now, will pick 10th overall. We'll talk plenty of football, both American and soccer. You stay up for the game last night, Parker?
You know what? I was planning on going to bed at halftime, but I stayed up for the whole thing.
Me
because
too.
I just couldn't, go America, baby. So I stayed up for the whole thing, and it was a heartbreaker towards the end. But then I reminded myself, this game doesn't matter because the USA has already clinched the spot in the round of 32.
Yeah, I saw a tweet which I thought was the perfect way to put it. The rest of the world needs to learn we don't care about our bowl game, because that's basically what it was last night. It was a game that didn't have much meaning to it. I want to say the only starter who was out there was Weston McKennie, and he played the whole game. And obviously they subbed some guys on. Pulisic came on in right around the 55th minute, 60th minute. And then you saw Alex Freeman and Serginho Dest come in. But it was the B squad for the U.S. yesterday. Scored early. Trusty got the header, 2 minutes in to make it 1-0. Then gave up to, you get the one back from Berhalter at the start of the second half. They had so many opportunities last night, Parker, in the middle part of that second half. Once Pulisic came on, he really gave a spark to that team. They had good opportunities, just couldn't capitalize. And then, it's a, disappointing way to go to bed, where the last touch of the game ends up being the go-ahead winner for Turkey. But again, a game that didn't matter. The U.S. was able to stay healthy for the most part. They got challenged. Maybe puts the chip back on their shoulder heading into the group stage or into the knockout round. But, it's a game that had no meaning for either team. The U.S. can learn from it, got everybody healthy, ready to go, and hopefully can take care of business against Bosnia on Wednesday.
Listen, as a competitor, I always know that you want to win. But in those type of situations, I kind of view it as that week 17 game in the NFL where you've already clinched the one seed, you've already clinched the bye, and there's really no reason for your guys, especially with your yellow cards, to be playing because you don't want to risk them getting a second one. Now, I did like that Pulisic came out, was subbed in that second half. I love the roar of the crowd. It provided cool. It provided a huge spark for the team, but there was really not a whole lot of reason to play a lot of the main guys that you'll need in the round of 32.
He got really close to putting the U.S. up. He had that little curler from the top of the box that just missed the far post, and I thought there was a nice spark there when he came on, when Freeman came on, Dest. They just, down the stretch in the last 5 minutes or so, Turkey put the pressure on and they were able to get one through. Matt Turner maybe not in the right position there in the last couple of seconds that allowed the goal to get in. Again, like you said, you always want to win, and I think that's the perfect way to put it. It was the Week 18 game where you've locked up the division, your seeding's locked in, and you bench everybody. And while you're watching the game, sure, you're rooting for your team to win. But as soon as the final whistle blew, it was like, all right, yeah, that sucked. You would have rather won that game.
For a second, then I'm like, wait.
It doesn't matter, right?
Does Turkey even move on? Do they advance?
No, they go home.
Yeah, so, I mean, they go out with a win, but they're going back to Turkey. So
right.
We'll see in November, guys.
Well, that's what it was funny. The broadcasters kept saying they want to make Turkey wants to get a win to make things easier when they get back home. I'm like, what's waiting for them when they get back? Is this like when the Soviets had to go back after losing in the 1980 Olympics? I was like,
my mind's going a lot of different places here, Jake.
It sounded like there were some bad things that were waiting for them at home Turkey, if they didn't win that game.
Isn't exactly a great country right now. We could say that.
Well, the U.S. is getting ready to go face Bosnia. That'll be in the San Francisco Bay Area at Levi's Stadium, or San Francisco Stadium. And, Bosnia, no pushover. I watched their game against Qatar. Qatar. I can't get that one right. Qatar.
I think that's right. I really struggle with the pronunciation.
It's we've had our issues on this program with the World Cup so far. Against Qatar back on, was that Wednesday? Yes,
Sounds
I believe
right.
It was Wednesday. And they look good. They made some plays. They ended up winning. Not going to be an easy match, but last night it was a skeleton crew of what you usually saw. I want to say until Freeman checked in, no one on the back line was a starter. You didn't have Ream back there. I'm blanking on some of the other guys that they play on the back line. You had Dest come in later, so you had most of your midfield. Balogun didn't play at all. So you're going to get your full squad ready to go for Wednesday against Bosnia. That's one that you have to win if you're the U.S. Like, if you lose in the round of 16, I think it would be disappointing. But again, it's like that's where you've been for basically the entire time the U.S. has played in the World Cup. It's like, all right, you can get to the round of 16, but you struggle to push through and get to the quarterfinals. It would be disappointing, but also kind of what you might have expected heading into the World Cup. You lose in the round of 32 to Bosnia. That's going to be really disappointing, especially given the way that this team started the World Cup, the way they played against Paraguay and Australia. I don't think it's going to happen. I think the U.S. takes care of business, but in order to at least just not have a firestorm of a missed opportunity for the U.S., you got to win this match on Wednesday.
Well, you certainly like the path. And like we've talked about on the show, you make it to the quarterfinals, and that is a win because I don't think anybody, even the guys that follow soccer a lot closer than we do, I don't think they expected the USA to get that far. And you come out, you beat Paraguay 4-1 and just like, wow, like did not expect that. Then you have, the 2-0 win versus Australia. You have a 5-goal differential heading into this game versus Turkey last night. So the U.S. has looked really, really good. But you certainly like the path. Bosnia on Wednesday, and then most likely Egypt, would you say, in the round of 16?
Yes. Right now, we'll find that out. I want to say today. Yes.
Neither of those teams are pushovers, but you like the U.S.'s chances.
Right. I think heading into this bracket, you thought that you were you didn't know the U.S. was going to win this group. Paraguay, Australia, and Turkey, none of those are world beaters, but those are teams that you thought would be competitive, more competitive than they were. So you win in the group, gives you a chance to play a third-place team. And you would have expected to see Belgium in the round of 16, which I would think Belgium is a tougher matchup than Egypt. So you've been given a much easier path than maybe you would have expected heading into the World Cup. You got to take advantage of it. You lose to Spain in the quarterfinals. I don't think anybody's going to be
because they were the favorite,
upset about it, right?
They're the favorite at the start.
They're the favorite to win the tournament. If you lose to them in the quarterfinals, which is a round you haven't reached in 25 years, I don't think anybody's going to be upset. But I do think you have to get there. And losing to Bosnia would be very disappointing. Again, I don't think they're going to do it. Maybe the loss last night is a good thing. It keeps them from getting too high, knocks them back down a peg, gets them back to playing the way they did entering the World Cup, hopefully, when they face Bosnia on Wednesday.
Yeah, no, I'm really excited for this game just because we're finally at the point. I didn't know how it was for you, but I kind of struggled having the same excitement for yesterday's game as I did because I knew that it ultimately, win, loss, or draw, it did not matter. Now that we're to the knockout stages, like it's win or die, right? So I'm really excited for that.
Yes, I agree. Last night, I was more watching out of obligation because I knew we were going to talk about it on the show today, but it was like I wasn't feeling super into the game. I am excited for Wednesday when it's win or go home. And no more ties after this. No more draws after Saturday. Tomorrow is the last day of the group stage. We finally will get actual extra time and then penalty kicks if necessary to see who moves on. So excited for the games to start mattering again. Again, it'll be, I want to say it's a 7:00 kick on Wednesday against Bosnia out in San Francisco. So excited for that. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. David from Watertown asks, hey guys, genuine question. Why was the last play where Turkey scored the game winner not offside? Player for Turkey was clearly past all the U.S. defenders when the ball was struck. I don't understand why that wouldn't have been offside. I'd have to take another look at it. First glance, I didn't think anybody was offside, but the second goal the U.S. scored that was disallowed, I didn't see it with the naked eye, and then you saw the replay, and it was pretty clear.
I also don't know much of the difference, if I'm being honest. So.
Well, I was very disappointed, by the way, with Tim Weah last night, who was actually one of the U.S.'s better players in the World Cup last year, and now he's been moved to the bench. He was offside like every single time he tried to make a run. just look down the line and make sure you're not offside. And he ended up getting pulled for Pulisic about halfway through the second half. But yeah, offside. I didn't get a good look at the replay. Pretty much as soon as that ball hit the back of the net, I turned the TV off and I went to bed.
I just heard the announcers, because I went to the kitchen to get some water, and I hear the announcers start to get really loud. I'm like, what just happened? And
Yeah.
then I rewind a little bit, and I'm like, man, that sucks.
I can take a look during the break at the replay and see maybe if they miss something. But they do VAR, all of that stuff. Like they would have confirmed it. So clearly he wasn't offside, but it might have been closer than I initially thought. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. If you want to text or call, our phone line's driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Again, lots to get to on the show today. It is NHL Draft Day. The Preds slated to pick 10th overall tonight in Buffalo. First draft for Chris McFarland at the helm of the Preds front office. Max Herz is going to join us in the final hour of the show to preview everything and react to some of the moves the Preds have already made this offseason. But coming up next, I heard Joe and Paul on Robbie and Rexroad this morning. They were doing their Mount Rushmore season. It is also list season, and ESPN has a new list for us to react to. Where do the Titans playmakers rank among all 32 NFL teams? Last year when Bill Barnwell made this list, the Titans running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends were dead last. How much did they move up this offseason? We'll let you know coming up next. 615-737-1025. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelley, next man up. 1-2-5 the game. Next man up, 102.5 The Game. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelley alongside you on your Friday morning. Lots to get to. It is NHL Draft Day, and again, if you want some Preds talk, 11 a.m., Max Herz from Preds Radio going to join us. He will be anchoring our NHL Draft coverage tonight right here on 102.5 The Game. Live coverage of the NHL Draft today, 6 p.m. Willie Donick, Max, and other Preds broadcasters will take you through the end of the first round as the Preds currently have the 10th overall pick. NHL Draft coverage on 102.5 The Game is presented by Tennessee Brewworks and the UPS store Green Hills. But going to start talking some Titans here. Parker, did you see this list from Bill Barnwell? Ranked all 32 teams by their playmakers on offense, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends.
Yep, and I saw the Titans came in at 25th.
Yes, they are 25th. They were dead last year, 32nd last year heading into the 2025 season. Bill Barnwell partially writes at the front of his excerpt here, says this feels, he said last year it felt like a wide receiver group where there would be 3 new starters in 2026. 2 of the 3, for sure. And Calvin Ridley, again, the jury is still out on what he's going to look like this season after taking a pay cut to stay. There was a part of this excerpt that he wrote about the Titans that I just don't agree with. He said he talks a lot about Tate, Robinson, Ridley, which those are probably going to be the 3 biggest playmakers heading into the season that I know of. But he says, of course, if the 3 wideouts don't perform, there's not much behind them. Alec Iamaner and Chim Dike were overmatched in starting roles a year ago. The Titans replaced Chigakonkwo with blocking tight end Daniel Bellinger, and nominal receiving tight end Gunnar Helm averaged just over 8 yards per catch as a rookie. I think that analysis of the 3 second-year, fourth-round picks from last year, I don't agree with that completely. I think with Chim Dike, you saw some struggles last year, mainly because of the way they were using him, right? Like we were talking about it in October, that he had more yards after the catch than he had yards before the catch because they were just throwing screens to him. And once they actually started using him down the field, he was making plays. Alec Iamaner had a good start to the year, then a lull in the middle, and then finished the season strong. I think Gunnar Helm, you saw a lot of flashes down the stretch as well. So I disagree with the fact that there isn't a lot of depth behind those top 3 guys. I think it's more that there's a lot of what ifs behind those 3 guys. And I think I would expect at least 1 or 2 of those 3 guys, DK, Iamaner, and Helm, to take a step forward this year and be a big part of this Titans passing game.
Well, and 2, I'm not really surprised by where he had this skill group ranked, and I'm not surprised what he said about Gunnar Helm, about Chim Dike, about Alec Iamaner, given where they were all drafted in the 4th round, and given, Alec Iamaner and Chim Dike, he's partially right because they were kind of forced to step up as rookies,
right?
But they certainly fit Chim Dike to me certainly fits that wide receiver 4, wide receiver 5 much better than he does wide receiver 2, 3. Gunnar Helm, I mean, people don't really know what to expect because Chigakonkwo was this tight end 1 last year. Gunnar Helm comes in as a 4th round pick. We obviously are going to talk about him a lot more and have higher expectations than national people would, but it does not surprise me where he has this group ranked. I might have the Titans skill group a little higher, but not much.
See, I don't have a problem specifically with the ranking. It's more just the reasoning. And I think maybe the wording is right that Iamaner and DK were overmatched in starting roles a year ago, but that's why they're not in starting roles anymore. And I think they fit their slot in that wide receiver room a lot better, especially if Brian Daboll is going to use Chim Dike the way I think that he needs to be used. As TD says, those transcontinental crossing routes, that's where Chim Dike had a lot of success last year. And I think that's where they're going to want to use him in his 2nd season. Gunnar Helm, I mean, sure, if you're going to look at the catches or the averages just over 8 yards per catch as a rookie, sure. But he also was very reliable. 44 catches on 55 targets. And now there's no one else taking those snaps from him with Chigakonkwo out of the equation. I think I am more optimistic on those 3 guys than Bill Barnwell is. But again, I don't necessarily have an issue with the ranking. I think this is a group that got better, but we're in a wait and see mode to see how much better this group got, right? Because Carnell Tate, sure, there's hope that he's going to turn into a wide receiver 1. You picked him high. He looked good in offseason work. but you just don't know until he actually starts playing. Wan'Dale Robinson, 1,000-yard year last year, but who else were the Giants going to throw the football to once Malik Neighbors went down? He was kind of just a volume guy that they had to throw the ball to. Calvin Ridley coming off the injury in a down year last year. What's he going to look like? So I don't have an issue with the ranking. I think 25 is about right. This is a group that got better, but I think you have to wait and see the results before you say it got a lot better based on the unknowns with a lot of the guys in that room.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. Like we talk about what the Titans surrounded Cam Ward with for this year, you feel a lot better. I'm not going to go as far to say as it's enough because I know this is talking about skill groups, but to me, it kind of goes back to the offensive line because I do not think the offensive line will be good enough for Cam Ward this year. And Carnell Tate coming in as a rookie, you expect big things from him as the 4th overall pick, but we haven't seen him play a real snap of NFL football yet. We don't know what Gunnar Helm is going to be as the true tight end one. Kind of skeptical about the running backs because who's behind Tony Pollard?
Right.
Tajay Spears, who's been injury prone, and
Nick
Tony
Singleton.
Pollard is getting older. Calvin Ridley's 32, coming off a fractured fibula. So there are a lot of questions still. So
and Bill Barnwell does end his excerpt about the Titans with Tony Pollard continues to soldier on as an eminently solid veteran back, which I think is perfect. He's solid, but the Titans need Tate to develop quickly to give this offense some much needed star power. And I think that is a great way to put it, that Carnell Tate is going to be the key cog that decides what this weapons group is going to look like this year. If Carnell Tate does blossom and he's a 1,000-yard guy in year one, this whole group is going to look better because he's going to draw attention away from guys like Robinson and Ridley and Helm, and they're going to get better as well. If Carnell Tate maybe struggles, maybe is injured, then I do think that brings the ceiling of this group way down. So again, I think the ranking is about right. 25th, it shows that this group has clearly improved, but you just don't know how much it's improved because Carnell Tate still hasn't played a snap of NFL football yet. You look back at the rankings, 2024, the Titans were ranked 19th. So that would have been the group that was Pollard's first season with the team. You had DeAndre Hopkins, you had Calvin Ridley, Traylon Burks was still there. So they were 19th. They were middle of the pack there, back down to 32 last year, which, you look at the actual production from this group last year, and it might have actually been right that the weapons were the worst in the league. But they've clearly made an effort to improve this group. I want to see the way that the young guys take that next step forward. Whether that's Tate as a rookie, who we said was so important, or those 3 young guys that clearly Bill Barnwell is skeptical about.
And there's 2 because, I've talked to national people. We had Jeremy Fowler on the show, talked to Dan Graziano, talked to Dan Orlovsky, and what they're looking at is the way the past 2 years went for the Titans. And if even you want to go back 3 years, what's the win total over the last 3 years? 12 wins over the last 3 years?
12 wins. And if you go back and include that 7-game losing streak,
exactly,
they are, if I can do quick math in my head, 12 wins in their last 58 games, 12 and 46. Does that sound right?
Sure, we'll go with that. I'm not going to do quick math on there, but yeah, that does sound right. And this cycle of hiring, firing, until things start to change and change drastically, the Titans aren't going to get the respect that we would hope they would get, and they shouldn't until they start getting wins on the field.
That is a good point. The Titans are not going to get the benefit of the doubt with anything until they actually go out and show that they are taking steps in the right direction. When you win 6 games in 2 years and 12 out of 58, people are going to be skeptical about you actually taking steps until you start getting wins on the field. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. We will take your thoughts. Again, Bill Barnwell, his annual release of the top running backs, wide receivers, tight ends, ranks all 32 teams. The Titans come in at 25th after being dead last a year ago. We'll go through some of the other teams where they rank, and we'll take your thoughts as well. 615-737-1025. And all of our football offseason coverage is brought to you by Tennessee Brew Works. From kickoff to last call, Tennessee Brew Works is the official craft beer of the football offseason on ESPN 1025 The Game. Lots of Titans talk here in this first hour. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelley, next man up here on 1025 The Game. Today, the Nashville Sounds take on the Gwinnett Stripers, the AAA affiliate of the Atlanta Braves, at First Horizon Park. First pitch set for 6:35 p.m. Catch all of the action on 94.9 The Fan, presented by Twin Peaks, Family Leisure, Maple Street Biscuit Company, Mad Fireworks, and Social Cantina. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelley alongside you on this Friday morning. Next man up, 102.5 The Game. We are going through Bill Barnwell's rankings of all the offensive playmakers in the NFL. Team by team, 1 through 32. The Titans slot in at number 25 after being dead last, 32nd last year. I thought it was hilarious that number 32 this year is the Miami Dolphins, which I don't have a problem with. Devon Achane is a good player, but their wide receivers are, can anyone name one of their wide receivers anymore after Jalen Waddle got traded? So they have dropped off a cliff in the last few years. In 2024, the Dolphins playmakers were ranked 3rd in the league by Bill Barnwell. That was when Tyreek Hill was closer to his prime. You had Jalen Waddle. Achane was still there early on in his career. It was a good group. Last year, they were 10, took a little bit of a step back, and now all the way down to 32. I still think the Dolphins might be the worst team in football this year. At least with like the Cardinals, I think there's some redeeming qualities with their offense. You've got Trey McBride, you've got Marvin Harrison, now you've got Jeremiah Love. The Jets have some players here and there. Garrett Wilson, they added to the defense this year. The Browns are going to be bad, I think, but I think the Dolphins are going to be the worst team in football. Malik Willis is going to be an okay starting quarterback. I would say like bottom 3rd of the league. And he has no one to throw the football to. The defense isn't very good. I struggle to believe Miami wins more than like 3 or 4 games this year.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I think they'll be picking first overall next year, but it just, what a terrible situation. You pay Malik Willis all that money. He comes in, your wide receiver 1. Who would you say it is? It's Malik Washington, Jalen Tolbert,
Tutu Atwell.
Your tight end is Greg Dulcich. Who's your wide receiver? Who's going to be your primary pass catcher?
I mean, they drafted Chris Bell, but Chris Bell's probably going to need a little bit of time to get ready.
They also drafted Caleb Douglas from Texas Tech.
But that was kind of a reach, right? Like he wasn't expected to go as early as he did. The quote here from Barnwell is, unfortunately, this might be the worst receiving core I've seen assembled on purpose by an NFL team in recent memory.
And you pay your quarterback all that money. You're setting him up to fail. That's what you're doing.
Right. And that I feel for Malik Willis because it's one of those deals where you know it's not going to last very long. Like the Dolphins needed a placeholder. They decided to take a lottery ticket on Malik Willis. And if Malik Willis was surrounded by good players like we saw in Green Bay, I think he can be an okay starting quarterback. But when his number 1 wide receivers are Malik Washington and Jalen Tolbert and Tutu Atwell, it's like, all right, well, what do you expect him to do? Devon Achane's going to have to be a superstar if they want to do anything offensively. So,
and looking at that offensive line, I mean, they brought back Aaron Brewer, who was better in Miami than he was here.
All-pro Aaron Brewer.
Patrick Paul is at left tackle, and Caden Proctor they drafted, but he's playing left guard. What's the game plan? Run left?
The Dolphins are not going to be good this year. I feel very confident in saying that. 31 is
poor Devon Achane.
Yeah, I know. He is the Maserati in the shed that you see floating around the internet for these situations. Giants are 31, and the reason for this is Malik Neighbors and the uncertainty around that knee. I think it was Charles Robinson when he was on with Robbie and Joe last week was asked about Malik Neighbors and the situation with his knee. And he said there's a chance that he starts on the PUP list, which is crazy considering he tore that ACL in week 3-4 last year. And it's still not better. It's a much more complex knee injury than I think you expected when it initially happened. And Titans play the Giants week 3. I mean, obviously you want Malik Neighbors to get healthy. He's a guy who could be a superstar in this league, but for the Titans, I think you'd be pretty pleased if he needs a month or so to get ready and get right before getting out onto the field.
Well, he had the cleanup surgery too, the second knee surgery, which is not exactly encouraging. But and then you take away Malik Neighbors, it's Darius tied in one, which he's never had to do before in Baltimore. And then Darius Slayton and Darnell Mooney are fine, but you take away Malik Neighbors.
Yeah, and Scattaboo will be back healthy. They still have Tyrone Tracy, right? So, like, there's some pieces there, but I agree. Like, if Malik Neighbors, if you knew he was healthy, I think this group is probably closer to where the Titans are. Probably a little above where the Titans are.
OBJ's back.
Oh, that's true. Odell is back. Who else did they just sign? They signed a
Juju.
Juju is there, yeah. So
they drafted Malachi Fields, signed Calvin Austin.
Right. So they've got a large depth of just not great receivers. We'll see how it pans out if Malik Neighbors is not ready to go to start the season. All right, let's go to the top of the rankings here. Number 1 is the Detroit Lions. And I think that's probably about right. You've got Jahmyr Gibbs, who might be the best playmaker in the league right now. Like, I think the conversation, obviously JSN had such a huge year with Seattle and was offensive player of the year. Bijan Robinson in Atlanta, great player. But I think Jahmyr Gibbs has to be up there for one of the best playmakers in the entire league. And now David Montgomery's not there. They brought in Isaiah Pacheco to kind of be that second back, but it's going to be Gibbs' backfield. You've got Amon-Ra St. Brown. You've got Jamison Williams. You've got Sam Laporta. Isaac Tesla, who was a big play guy last year. I
love him.
I think this is that's about right. I think Detroit probably is the best group of weapons in the NFL.
Oh, I'd have to agree. And the reason they edge out the Rams for this is because of Jahmyr Gibbs.
Right.
Just given the playmaking, because he's kind of like your Bijan Robinson, do it all, can go out, run routes, can go from the slot, can obviously the explosive play from the backfield. That's probably what edges them out over the Rams.
Yeah, I think it's comparable when you look at the wide receivers. Puka and Amon-Ra St. Brown, Devontae Adams, probably a little better than Jamison Williams, but maybe on the downside of his career. But you're right. Jahmyr Gibbs is the difference maker there.
Devontae Adams was just a cheat code every time they'd get inside the 5-yard line because they just throw it up to him.
Yep. And Matthew Stafford was so good at
he
throwing
was
the fade.
looking, all this kind of stuff.
Yes. He led the league in touchdowns last year, correct? Or at least at one point he was.
He did.
Yeah.
14 touchdowns, by the way, for Devontae Adams.
Right. Right. Bengals are at number 3, which makes sense when you've got probably, would you say that's the best wide receiver tandem in the league, Chase and Higgins? Like, I think it's if it's not one, it's.
What would be second off the top of your head?
mean, Puka and Devontae is probably up there.
Yeah. I'd go Jamar or T.
I think Jamar and T are probably the two best.
Because T Higgins isn't like a true 2. He's more like a 1B.
Right. I think he'd be a 1 in a lot of different places. So that you probably got the best wide receiver tandem, and then Chase Brown's a good running back too. You got Andre Yoshivas, the Princeton Tiger,
Shout
in
out
the slot.
Shout out the Ivy League.
Number 4 is the Atlanta Falcons, which, you've got those 3 top 10 picks, Robinson, London, and Pitts. You're still waiting for Pitts to really put it together, even after getting the extension.
He had a good year last year, but I needed to see it again.
All of those 3 players are hurt by having nothing at quarterback with Tua and
Michael
Penix. The 2 lefty quarterbacks in the same room. And then number 5, the San Francisco 49ers, which on paper, or at least off the top of my head, I was like, really? The 49ers? But when you go through it, there is a lot of potential there. You've got Mike Evans now. You've got Christian Kirk. You have Ricky Pearsall.
CMC.
And you drafted, even though I think it was a reach, you drafted Deshaun Stribling out of Ole Miss in the first round, first pick of the second round. So I do think that there's potential there. Christian McCaffrey and George Kittle, of course, are going to be, what they've been, maybe a step lower as they get another year older. But I can see it. The Brandon Ayuk stuff is just crazy right now. Have you been paying attention to his TikTok and Instagram videos?
I haven't watched any of the videos, but I've seen all the articles written about it.
You should watch it. I mean, it's kind of scary, and it's as we talked about the other day. It's like it's not quite full on Antonio Brown, but it's giving shades of Antonio Brown.
It's not far off.
And he's basically telling everybody to go buy tickets to watch him play for the Commanders when he still is on the 49ers. I don't know what San Francisco can do. No one's going to trade for him when he's doing this. If anybody would do it, it's the Commanders, and I don't think they want to give up pieces for Brandon Ayuk.
So if they straight up released him, how much would there be in dead cap?
Well, they voided his guarantees. So it wouldn't be as much as you'd think based on the contract that he's signed. Let's see. If they cut him after this year, so if they cut him now, you'd have a $33 million dead cap charge, which
that sucks for him.
It sucks, but you might just have to eat it. I mean, what's stopping the 49ers from just keeping him under contract? And, you did it last year and he wasn't on the team. I could see them just doing it again. But that's
I can't understand it because it seems like every wide receiver's dream to play with Shanahan.
Right. And they let Debo go. They traded him last year. Like he was supposed to be the number one.
And you're getting paid money. You're in the Bay Area. You're on a Super Bowl contender.
Right. And that's why I say like he's I
can't wrap my head around it.
That's why the Antonio Brown stuff, because it's like, what are you upset about? That was my issue with Brown when he got traded to the Raiders. That's where he wanted to go. When he denied the trade to the Bills when the Steelers finally moved him and basically said he wouldn't play there. Then the Raiders, and there was the video of him running around celebrating that he was going to the Raiders. He was on Hard Knocks and just could not figure it out. Didn't play a snap for him. So it's that's the shades that it's giving me is Antonio Brown, and you hope that Brandon Ayuk is okay. But I don't know how that saga is going to end. 615-737-1025. Benjamin on the text line says, Lamb and Pickens, number one wide receiver tandem. Higgins is overrated. I don't know if I'd say Higgins is overrated, but yeah, Lamb and Pickens would be the other one that I think I would put up there.
They're a lot lower than I thought they would be.
Yeah, where were the Cowboys?
They're 7. They're behind the Cardinals.
Yeah,
the Cardinals are going to get a huge bump because of McBride and Love.
Right, and Michael Wilson's a good player.
And Marvin Harrison Jr. still gets a little bit of the benefit of the doubt, but is really struggling.
They got Tyler Algier this offseason. They have James Conner. There's some depth. So
Trey Benson's your RB4, which you feel great about.
So the Cowboys, Lamb and Pickens, if they're 1 or 2, right? They're 1 or 2 when it comes to the top wide receivers, top wide receiver duos with the Bengals. I kind of like Higgins more than Pickens. I know Pickens had a big year last year, but I'd like to see him do it a little more consistently. And I like Chase more than Lamb, but that's just my opinion. I could see it both ways. I think you're splitting hairs.
See, I like Chase more than Lamb, but I like Pickens more than Higgins.
Okay. Yeah. That's why I think it's close. I think it's close between those two.
Because I think Pickens, when he stays out of his own way, is a top 5 receiver in the league. I don't see that for T. Higgins. If he stays out of his own way, he has the potential to be a top 5 receiver.
I could see it. He was really, really good last year in a contract year. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. We'd love to hear from you. We've got some reaction on the text line. We can get to that coming up next and wrap up hour number 1. We'll talk some college football in the second hour. News out of Knoxville this morning. Chaz Coleman dismissed from Tennessee. We'll get into that and much more. And again, Max Herz is going to join us at 11 talking Preds. As it is NHL Draft Day in Buffalo. 615-737-1025. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelley, next man up. 102.5 The Game. Next man up, 102.5, The Game. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelley with you, finishing up the first hour on this Friday. Talking Titans as Bill Barnwell ranked all 32 teams based on their offensive playmakers. Who has the best wide receivers, running backs, and tight ends in the league? Titans were 32nd last year. They move up to 25th heading into the 2026 season. We were talking about the way they've improved that group, drafting Carnell Tate as high as they did, bringing in Wan'Dale Robinson, who obviously fits that Brian Daboll system. But you brought it up, Parker, that the offensive line is still a big question mark. And I thought 4312 made a good point earlier in the hour when he texted in. He said, my worst fear for this Titans team is we will need 2 tackles and a guard come next draft. And that is the doomsday scenario for the Titans, because that would mean that, and one of these things I think is likely, Dan Moore isn't going to be your long-term tackle on the left side. And I 100% think that's going to be the case. You brought him in to be a Band-Aid. You didn't have the option to take him in the draft because you took Cam Ward first overall. He was the best tackle out there on the free agent market, and you made it happen. It makes sense for 2 years, but eventually you got to go find a long-term solution there. So that one is going to happen. But if you need all 3 of these things, that means J.C. Latham failed this year, and it likely means that Jackson Slater isn't going to be a long-term solution at right guard either, which that one I think is more likely. I don't even know if he's going to start this year. I think your best case scenario is Slater steps in and is a good player this year at right guard, and you feel good about that heading into 2027, and J.C. Latham finally takes that step and looks like the 7th overall pick that you took him at 3 years ago. Or 2 years ago.
Yeah, so it's hard for me to not be a little pessimistic about this offensive line, but I did hear Trevor Maddich on DVD on Tuesday, and he gave me a little bit of hope about J.C. Latham, so I'm not ready to sell the stock yet on him. But I expect Dan Moore not to be a Titan after this year.
Yeah.
I expect them to find a new left tackle. There is a great possibility that you are looking for a right guard, but it is the doomsday scenario. You have to replace both tackles and right guard.
I think you look at this offensive line, Skoronski's good, right? You're gonna extend Skoronski. He's going to be your left guard. Now the other 4 positions, I think it's likely you have to replace 2 next year, which isn't bad. You can replace 2 offensive linemen in one offseason and possibly find some good options there. Whether that's you take a left tackle in the first round and maybe you take a center in the third, or you go and draft or go find a center in free agency. Like, I can live with that if you have to replace 2 offensive linemen next year. I think it's very possible you have to replace 3. Left tackle, center, right guard.
You may have your center waiting in the wings, though.
Right. Is it Pat Coogan? And that at least gives you hope that you have some young talent there with Coogan and Slater, and you drafted Fernando Carmona. But I think it's likely you have to replace 2. It's possible you have to replace 3. You just cannot have to replace 4 guys next year. It's so hard to overhaul the offensive line. We saw the Texans try and do it last year when they shipped off all 5 of their offensive linemen and tried to replace it. And it didn't really get all that much better.
This isn't college football. You can't go out and just buy 4 new offensive line, get them from the portal.
There's only so many resources, and there's only so many starting offensive linemen that are available to you in a given offseason. So again, I think that's what you're looking at with the offensive line this year is, all right, Skoronski's good. He's going to be your left guard in 2027. I'm okay replacing 2. You can live with possibly having to replace 3, but you can't have to replace 4. And J.C. Latham is the key cog there. He has to be good this year. He has to be.
So I'm going to ask you an impossible question, but outside of Skoronski, who's the next best person you feel confident in on this Titans offensive line?
I mean, it has to be Latham, right?
What's your feel? Like, who are you most confident? Are you most confident?
I'm confident based on what we saw down the stretch. Once he got healthy and he started to get comfortable, I think you started to see that growth, similar to what we saw with Skoronski in 2024. So I think that gives you hope that he's ready to take the step if he stays healthy and he's out there all of training camp and into the regular season. But that doesn't mean I feel great about it. But out of the options, like if you're asking me, do I feel better about
not great options?
Latham, Moore, Schlottman, and I guess Volson / Slater? Yeah, give me Latham out of those 4.
I just think it's interesting because I like Jackson Slater. I think it's a great story, him coming from Sacramento State, but there's going to be a massive learning curve going from the FCS level to the National Football League. And they talked about how much they liked him last year, but he didn't really play as much as you might initially think. And I'm interested to see how much he plays this year because he has been rotating with the ones, but also too, I mean, your both your tackles haven't been out there, so it's hard to get a good gauge of what this offensive line is going to look like come, the regular season. But I don't know. I don't know what to think of Jackson Slater.
Yeah, Slater, we just don't know enough about him, right? He hasn't been out there.
Because they supposedly like him, but how much is he going to play?
Right. So that's why I say Latham, because at least we have some proof of concept that he's looked good at times out there. It just has to be more consistent in year 3. You picked him 7th overall. You picked him over Brock Bowers. He's got to start being a stalwart right tackle for you. That's what you expect when you take him in the top 10. Skyler on the text line asked, why have the Titans had question marks at offensive line for the last 7 to 8 years? And I don't know if it's 7 or 8. Like, I look back at the 2021 offensive line, which obviously got off to a horrible start, where Chandler Jones had the 5 sacks against the Titans with the Cardinals in week 1. But once they got going, that 5 of Lawan, Saffold, Ben Jones, Nate Davis, and then it's listing David Quessenberry. I guess he was the right tackle that year for most of the season. But that was a fine group. That group was, by the end of the year, they were playing really well. But since then, Skyler, the reason the Titans have had question marks at offensive line for the last 7-8 years is because they missed on like 4 straight picks on the offensive line. Isaiah Wilson, Dylan Radins, Nicholas Petit-Frere, and
you're also signing the wrong people too.
Right.
Andre
Dillard, you traded for Dennis Daly. Like, that's why you've tried to fix the offensive line just with the wrong players. And you look and say, in 5 straight drafts, 5 straight, the Titans invested a day 1 or day 2 pick in the offensive line. And 3 of those guys are gone. Like, if you could add 4 of those guys, just be starting level players. Don't have to be all pro players. But if Isaiah Wilson was still your right tackle, obviously, I mean, we learned quickly that was not going to be, but you picked him in the first round.
Nicholas Petit-Frere.
When you pick Isaiah Wilson, 29th overall,
you expect him
in
to be
2020, you're hoping that he's still your right tackle in 2026. He hasn't played for you in 5 years. When you take Nicholas Petit-Frere in the 3rd round to try and fix that mistake, you're thinking he's going to be your starter. He's no longer on the team. You pick Dylan Radins in the 2nd round. You expect he's going to be one of your best 5 for years to come.
You remember that experiment with Jalen Duncan too? Now, he was a 6th-round pick, but...
Right. So that's the reason that the offensive line has had so many questions. It's because they missed on offensive lineman after offensive lineman in the draft over a 3 or 4 year span. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. We'll take your texts and calls on our phone lines, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel at 1025 The Game for live shows and exclusive content. Hour number 2 coming up next. We're going to talk some college football. Chaz Coleman dismissed from the Vols this morning. We'll get into that. And also, the big change this week that's been talked about in college sports is the 5-and-5 eligibility model. But there was also another smaller change that I wanted to get to, which involves the schedule. We'll talk about it next. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelley, next man up, 1025 The Game. Second hour, next man up, 102.5 The Game. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelley with you, broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville Studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Again, it is NHL Draft Day. Max Herz from Preds Radio going to join us at 11 to talk all things Smashville. The Preds slated to have the 10th overall pick tonight in Chris McFarland's first draft with the Predators. But did want to talk some college football here in the second hour. Before we get into the Chaz Coleman situation, Parker, kind of slipped under the radar this week with the NCAA making the 5-5 eligibility model, the new standard that they're putting into place, that the D1 committee also approved the season for college football starting in week 0 moving forward and being 14 weeks long instead of 13 weeks. So what are your thoughts on this, Parker, that we might start in the future getting college football a week earlier if this ends up going through?
As a traditionalist, I really struggle getting behind this just because I'm used to college football starting on Labor Day weekend. Now, I'm fine if you want to have a couple games in week 0. Trust me, that does not bother me. But moving up the season a week, sure, it may not be that big of a deal, but to me, as somebody who values the tradition and the history of college football, I'm just used to it starting on Labor Day weekend, and that's just kind of been a sentimental aspect of the game for me. So, no, I'm not a fan. I don't really think we had to mess with that at all, personally.
So here's why I am going to say I like it. And it has nothing to do with college football. I think the NFL is primed in the next few years to go to an 18-game schedule. And
actually been some reporting on that this morning.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Okay. Well, it's going to happen, right? They went to 17 knowing eventually it was going to get to 18, and they're likely going to add an extra bye week. So in order for the Super Bowl to be on President's Day weekend, which I think is the goal of the NFL, they would also have to push up the start of the regular season 1 week to Labor Day weekend. So I think this makes sense for college football because Labor Day weekend has always been dominated by college football. It's week 1 and you get games Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and it's all college football all the time. The NFL, as we know, is encroaching on every day of the week and as many weeks as it possibly can, and eventually it's going to go to Labor Day weekend. So I think college football, in order to still have its premiere and not get overshadowed by the NFL, who knows what days of the week during week 1 they're going to be playing in 3 years down the line, right? They're already playing Wednesday, Thursday, Sunday, Monday this year in week 1. Maybe they end up going Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday in Labor Day weekend once they make that move. So for college football to still get its premiere and get to showcase its product without being overshadowed by the NFL, I think they had to move up a week. So I like this move for college football, mostly because it's going to separate it back away from the NFL.
So you and I are going to have some differing opinions on this, and I understand I'm probably more in the extreme category. I love college football, I love the NFL, but my heart and soul is with college football on this. So here's kind of my frustration with the NFL, because if you think about it, college football is essentially the minor leagues for the NFL. They do a lot of developing of these players. They do a lot of promoting of these players. Oftentimes, by the time you get to the NFL draft in April, you already know who all these prospects are.
Right.
And that's on college football's dime. The NFL had really nothing to do with that. So college football does a lot for the NFL in terms of that. Everybody knew who Fernando Mendoza was before he's even played a snap for the Las Vegas Raiders. If it were up to me, I don't like that the NFL is trying to encroach on every day of the week. I don't like how they play on Saturdays during the regular season because that is for college football. I don't like how they played on Friday nights because that's for high school football. They've done that in the past when the Eagles and Packers played in Brazil.
Right, Brazil.
I didn't like that because that is for high school football. I don't even like college football playing on Fridays, really, if I'm being honest. I like the Saturdays, Sundays, So if I'm college football and I'm in charge of scheduling, if the NFL wants to play on Saturday, I'm not afraid to put my games on Saturday and go head-to-head with them. Now, I understand that more people are probably going to watch the NFL, but you put a dent in their ratings, and that would make the NFL not happy about that. That's how I view it.
See, I understand.
I get I'm more extreme.
But the
NFL,
NFL is king. And you saw it last year.
I get it. 100%.
In the college football playoff when ESPN said, we're going to schedule our 2 stinkers in the college football playoff on Saturday because we know, or on the Friday or whatever it was, because we knew the NFL was playing.
And I knew college football didn't stand a chance because more people are going to watch Bears versus Packers than Oregon and James Madison. Right. I'm not an idiot. Like, I get it. I just hate it.
And I understand that. The one concern I have with this is the season is going to be so long. Like, all right, so you get away from Labor Day weekend and you start in week 0. That means that you could realistically have the season starting as early as what, August 24th, 25th, depending on when Labor Day is. Actually, maybe even earlier than that. 23rd, I believe, would be the earliest it could start on that Saturday. So you're starting in late August, and the national championship game right now is being played on January 25th.
Which is ridiculous.
I mean, it's
ridiculous.
That season is just as long as the NFL season. And I mean, they're student athletes. You're running into the enrollment issues too of like the transfer portal is so late now that classes have usually already started for these schools, and it's tough for these student athletes to actually make a move. That's my one thing with this is, do you really want to extend this season another couple of weeks because you're moving it back and you're adding another bye week? That's my issue, especially if they're going to go to a 2014 playoff at some point. Like, you're just going to have this season continue to get longer and longer and longer.
And that's my thing. And really, I don't think you have to do much with the regular season in order to fix the postseason. Just don't have almost a month off, because if you think about Texas Tech, they played the Big 12 championship game that first weekend in December.
Yep.
They didn't play for another month up until that quarterfinal game versus Oregon. Don't do that.
Yeah.
To me, it seems really cut and dry. Like, okay, I think right now you can still have your conference championship games, and the SEC and the Big Ten are not going to be quick to give those up, as we've seen. I think you can start playing the playoffs after the championship weekend and still at least wrap it up by the second weekend in January, where you're not playing all the way almost into February, which is just crazy.
Yeah, but more is always going to win, right? Because more games means more money, more eyes. So I think this is going to end up going through, and I like it for a lot of reasons of, it makes the offseason a little bit shorter. You don't have to wait all the way into September to get college football. But in terms of the players and their health and safety, like it's going to be a long, long season.
Well, too, I know this is probably not thought about at all, but you think about the Deep South playing in August.
I know.
And the heat
levels. I mean, it's already, Labor Day is already hot.
Exactly. But you move it up a week and you're playing in August.
Right.
Still summer.
You remember the Tennessee-Virginia game at Nissan Stadium a few years ago? I'm
brutal.
sure you were there. I wasn't there, but my family was, and they were like, that was the hottest game I've ever
Think
been
about,
life.
playing in Baton Rouge or that time, or Gainesville or Tallahassee. That would be miserable.
Yeah. It's something that there's pros, there's cons to it, but it looks like it's going to go through. I believe the D1, I forget what committee it was. There's so many different committees, but
it was probably the Division I counselor. Yeah,
something like that. They pushed it through. So it looks like in 2027, we might see the college football season start the week before Labor Day in full swing and not just a couple of games here and there. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. We'll get your thoughts on this. Also, we'll get into the Chaz Coleman situation at Tennessee as he has been dismissed from the team, as was reported by On3 this morning. 615-737-1025. Our phone lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Jake Lyman and Parker Kelley with you on your Friday morning. Next man up, 1025 The Game. Next man up, 102.5 The Game. Jake, Lyman, Parker Kelley alongside you. Talking some college football here in hour number 2. News this morning out of Knoxville. Chaz Coleman, the Penn State transfer, has been medically disqualified from the team, and they are parting ways. There's been a lot of buzz around this throughout spring practice and into the summer, and it felt like this was the way it was going to go, Parker, but it's now official. Chaz Coleman will not play for Tennessee this season, and that's a tough blow. A guy who is expected to be one of their bigger impact players they got out of the portal this offseason.
Yeah, when Joe Rexrode, because I think the news broke while I was driving. So
yeah, it was like 8:30ish.
I didn't see it, but when I came in this morning, Joe was telling me about it, and I wasn't even surprised. Like I didn't really bat an eye because I honestly expected this to happen. I've talked with people close to the Vols, and I'm like, do you actually think that Chaz Coleman's going to play this year? So I don't know what kind of underlying mental health issues were there, but it was always a weird situation from the start. And his parents actually backed Tennessee on this. And I like the fact that they backloaded his contract where, okay, you have to play deep into October, November in order to get the full amount of money that you were promised. So I think Tennessee did the right thing there. But if there were issues there with Chaz Coleman, it doesn't make it look any better because you're posting on Instagram with the money all over your arm. Right. So it seemed like it was heading this way for a long time, but it just goes to show Nick Saban was, in his infinite wisdom, was right. Like, you're SOL if you spend the wrong amount of money on the wrong type of player.
Yeah, and it's funny. Andrew Allegretto was with us on Monday, and he was kind of talking about that same thing of like the transfer portal. It gives and it takes away, right? Like there is a benefit to going out and spending money and getting these highly ranked transfers who can come in and play right away, but you got to pick the right ones. And if you're not doing the right research and you maybe just don't go as in-depth as you need, you could be spending money on players who aren't going to help your team. I mean, you look at Texas Tech. I know that they didn't end up spending all the money, but they paid $1 million to Brendan Sorsby for him to never play a snap for their team. Like it's you got to find the right guys for your roster in the portal. And Chaz Coleman, clearly not a good fit. I know homesickness was something that was talked about.
Which I don't know about you. I've never heard of that before.
I mean, I get it. Like, as a college kid, I think everybody gets homesick, but I've never heard of it
out
like
of spring practice.
Right. I've never heard of that impacting a player's ability to get on the field.
And I mean, he did transfer there with teammates, assistant coaches, Jim Knowles, who was his DC
there was some familiarity there.
So, I mean, I don't know. I've been homesick before because I went to school 8 hours away, but I didn't sit out of spring practice because of it.
Right. Yeah. I guess that you can attest to that experience.
I've never really heard of that before, but it's also so hard to know if you're spending on the right player because the transfer portal is speed dating nowadays.
Right. You don't have that much time.
It's tough.
It's not like you can get these guys on campus most of the time. It's just, hey, we're going to reach out to your agent. Do you want to come? And so, yeah, it's tough for Tennessee. And I know we've talked about this before, Parker, and I heard Joe bring this up, that this is now your third incident in the last 15 months where you've had a pretty highly regarded player have issues that have led to them leaving the team. Nico Iamaleava, then Boo Carter early in the fall last year, and now Chaz Coleman. Again, I struggle to say that this is a culture issue with Josh Heupel. I think it's more three independent situations, but I also look at it and say, like, you probably want to be a little bit more thorough when you're vetting these players and making sure that you've got the right fit for your culture, because clearly Tennessee has had some issues with guys just not being the right match for what they're trying to accomplish.
Yeah. And I'm not going to, I don't think it's a culture issue, and I'm not going to go to as far as to say it is, but there are definitely things that you can learn from this. I know it's tough in this age of the transfer portal, and there's only one window now. So you really got to try to know these players as best you can, which is hard. But I also think, too, for Nico, it was his dad. For Boo Carter, it was his mom. Chaz Coleman, I don't think, had that same issue. So these are three kind of separate cases.
Right.
But it's the matter of having the wrong people in your ear, because Chaz Coleman's agent, which is who Tennessee went through, you're talking to these agents all the time, and I've heard stories of agents taking up to 25% of what the player's making, which is just absurd. So there are a lot of slimy agents out there. And I think for a lot of these kids who are 18, 19, 20 years old, how would they know better?
Right.
The wrong people are in there.
I think that is something that has to be brought up with all the money that's involved now. And I think it's a good thing that these players are getting what they're worth, but you're going to have vultures. You're going to have people who are trying to take advantage of there not being a whole lot of regulations involved with NIL right now. And you're dealing with, like you said, I mean, it's 18 to 22-year-old kids who have the opportunity to make more money than they could have ever imagined. And you can have,
and they're more famous than they'll ever,
right.
Like Ryan Williams, think about him at 18 or even before he was 18.
Right.
How famous he was.
17. I don't know if you ever heard that.
I didn't hear that. But yeah, he was super famous as a 17-year-old, and you're getting paid however much he was getting paid. I mean, sometimes a lot of that just goes to your head.
Yeah. And
when you're that age.
And it's hard for these players who, again, they're young, and their families who maybe haven't been part of it to know what to do and who to trust in those scenarios. So I agree with you that, like, the agent process, like Diego Pavia, the people made a whole big thing about him saying he didn't have an agent. It wasn't for the NFL. He has an NFL agent, but he didn't have an NIL agent because
which honestly may not be the worst thing in the world.
Right. Because NFL agents, I want to say, are capped at 3%. Like, that's the most that they can take from a player's contract is 3%.
There are no rules.
But in NIL, no, it's probably more like 5 or 10%. I don't know exactly what the rules are. So
all you have to do, like, I could become a college agent. Like, I could go to Twitter right now and just put college football agent in my bio, and that's the only qualifications I need. And I'm being dead serious.
Right. No,
too.
That's true. Like the NFLPA has to approve agents, right? Like agencies and specific agents have to.
Is it collectively bargained?
I want to say that, like, let's look it up. NFL rules for agents.
Because that's my thing. Like, I'm slower to say they're professional athletes in college. I know that they're getting paid a lot of money, but at the same time, the difference between college athletes and professional athletes is professional athletes have contracts. And if they violate those contracts, there are consequences.
Right.
They don't have that in college. So I consider it more unprofessional.
So here's NFLPA, the agent regulations. Non-refundable application fee of $2,500. You must have an undergraduate and a postgraduate degree from an accredited college or university, and provide at least 7 years of sufficient negotiating experience. Authorization to perform a background investigation, mandatory attendance at a 2 to 3 day virtual seminar, plus an additional day for administration of the exam at a testing center, successful completion of a multiple choice proctored computer-based exam, and a valid email address.
Yeah, in college, you don't have to have any of that.
Right. So, like, the NFLPA has a very specific set. You have to pass an exam. You have to pay a fee. You have to have an actual background that proves you are going to be a worthy representative of these players. And you're right. In college right now, it's so new that everybody's trying to get in because this is a market that is going to grow. Like, you're going to see more money being put into college athletics, and people are trying to take advantage of that. And so with Chaz Coleman, I don't know specifically if that was what went wrong, if his agent was misrepresenting him, but clearly a bad situation that is going to cost Tennessee on the field this year. I mean, that given the pedigree of player that Coleman was expected to be, you're going to have to replace that with somebody who wasn't expected to be in that role.
Yeah, it's just it's a really, really unfortunate situation, and it sucks that it's happened, the last 3 years. And for Josh Heupel, I mean, you think about what happened with Nico, and your starting quarterback gets, swept out from under your feet, and you got to go get another one in spring ball. And then this thing happens with Boo Carter, who was, supposed to be this all SEC caliber player. Same thing with Chaz Coleman. I mean, the coaches are not going to come out and say publicly that they don't like the way things are right now, but they all feel the same way. And that's just tough. It's tough.
No, and you've seen it with the amount of coaches leaving college sports to go pro. We just saw it with Dusty May this past, and I don't know, like, for Tony Vitello, the example too of, like, I think he just wanted to be the manager of Major League team.
That's just, you can't pass up that
opportunity. Maybe that was Dusty May too, was he wanted to coach in the NBA. But I also think you've seen a lot of other coaches. Chip Kelly perfect example.
Yes.
He left a head coaching job to go
take
be
a
an
coordinator
offensive coordinator job because he didn't want to deal with all the recruiting and all that kind of stuff.
Jeff Hafley became the DC of the Packers because he didn't want to deal with it anymore.
Right. So you've seen that, and I think coaches understand that this isn't where they'd like college football to be, but there's also not much you can do about it right now.
You kind of have to adapt or die.
Right.
And that's kind of, I mean, that's the reason Dabo Swinney has not been as successful. It's not because he forgot how to coach football. He's just, stubborn.
Yeah, it took him longer to adapt than everybody else.
Yeah, and he doesn't really use the portal. I mean, he'll get a couple players. He's used it more, but he's slower to do that.
Right. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. We'll take your thoughts on this. Some good questions on the text line here we can get to. And, the Josh Heupel of it all. Josh Heupel's a good coach, and I don't think there's any reason he should be on the hot seat necessarily, but this is an important year for him to show that this team can be a year-over-year contender. And given the quarterback situation, now you lose one of your key defensive players. You wonder what this season's going to look like for Tennessee. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelley with you on this Friday morning. Next man up, 1025 The Game. Next man up, 102.5 The Game. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelley with you. I hope Joe Rexroad's not listening.
Maybe that's why I played it.
Yeah, I was going to say, if Joe's listening, he's not going to be thrilled with Maroon 5.
So is Robbie not a fan of Maroon 5 either?
No, Robbie likes the early Maroon 5. He's kind of in our camp of like songs about Jane, and I'm blanking on what their second album's called. Is it like It Won't Be Soon Before Long or
I don't know. You would know better than me.
The second one is decent too. After that, I can pass on Maroon 5 music. Joe is right though. Like, what year did they do the Super Bowl? Because it was way too late. 2019. Yeah, like Maroon 5 should not have been doing the Super Bowl in 2019.
People did. I personally did not care. Like, I was like, eh.
I don't care about the Super Bowl halftime show most years. Like, it's this past year, I enjoyed Bad Bunny. I thought it was entertaining. I didn't know a lot of the songs. I
like the one in LA in 22.
The LA one was cool. That's what we were talking about with when it comes to Nashville. That's what they should do, but just do it country music, different eras all coming together. I think that's great. Like, The Weeknd was a few years ago. The Kendrick Lamar one was good.
I didn't think The Weeknd was bad.
The Weeknd was okay. Anyway. Yeah.
It's not like I don't listen to The Weeknd religiously or anything.
I'll agree with Joe on Maroon 5, probably one of the worst halftime performances of all time, but that doesn't mean some of their music isn't okay.
Their early stuff.
Sunday Morning's a banger. That's a great song.
Yeah.
It's a great song.
It's kind of like Taylor Swift. Her early stuff I really like.
Right.
Older stuff,
There's some of her newer stuff that is fine. And I'm sure if I listen to more Maroon 5, there might be a song or two that is okay. But yeah, anything post like 2008 from Maroon 5, I'm good. Anyway, 615-737-1025 is the phone number. Chaz Coleman dismissed from Tennessee's team, medically disqualified this morning. So the saga over there. And with Josh Heupel, again, we talked about, I don't think it's a culture issue. Nevada Josh does say this on the text line. He says, I would say it's a culture issue, but not the way you think it is. More so the players bringing bad vibes to the team, so they had to let them go for whatever different situations they had. So I guess Nevada Josh is saying it can be a culture issue, but it's not. It doesn't fall at the feet of Josh Heupel, I guess.
And I think he's handled it the right way. Like, we all applauded how he handled the Nico situation.
Right.
I think most of us would have done the same with Boo Carter.
Yeah, and I guess that's true. Is we've seen programs not have standards. I mean, I hate to, like, Alabama, Brandon Miller, like, probably should not have been playing basketball after
even
that
a more
whole
recent
situation.
one. I mean, Texas Tech was going to play Brendan Sorsby.
Right. Like, we have seen programs set aside their standards to accommodate good players. And I do like that Josh Heupel has not done that. He has said, fine, if you're not going to be part of what we want, and you're not going to, if you want more money, great, go somewhere else. Boo Carter, if you're going to have these issues off the field, you can go somewhere else. Chaz Coleman. So I applaud Josh Heupel for that, but we are in a results-driven business, right, in college football, and last year was a down year for Tennessee. Given the expectations around that program, they went to the college football playoff 2 years ago and missed it this year, ended with a sputter with Vandy going into Knoxville and waxing them in the second half. So heading into this year, there's expectations to take a step forward, and I don't know whether they're going to be able to do that with an inexperienced quarterback, whether it's Brandon or McIntyre, and now down what was supposed to be a significant piece on the defensive side of the ball. I just don't know if this Tennessee team is a college football playoff contender. I think they're about as good as they were last year, maybe even a little worse with a less experienced rookie quarterback, for lack of a better word, whether it's Faison Brandon or George McIntyre.
Yeah, and 8-4 was a reasonable expectation once Nico left and you bring in Joey Aguilar. I think given Joey Aguilar's struggles with turnovers his 2 years at App State, Josh Heupel squeezed every amount of the sponge that he could and got the most out of Joey Aguilar. And he was playing with a tumor in his bicep that actually most people didn't know about until he said something.
Right.
So on Brandon, whoever it might be. But if the Vols take a little bit of a step back, because you're going to rely on defense, You're going to rely on running the football. You got to trust that the defense is going to make the jump because we know Jim Knowles' defense is hard to learn.
Yep.
That's why you brought assistants. That's why you brought former players over. But what are you going to get at quarterback? That's the big question. And we have no way of knowing.
Yeah, and you lost a lot this offseason. Chris Brazel's gone. Colton Hood gone. I know Jermon McCoy didn't play, but obviously he's not on the team anymore. Is it Joshua Joseph was the edge rusher that went in the 3rd or 4th round? So you did lose a decent amount of players. Now you've brought in some talent in the portal. You've got the developing talent from your roster, but it's going to be a crucial year for Josh Heupel and this team. Again, I wouldn't say that even a bad year. Like, bad year for Tennessee, Parker. Would you say if they win 6 or 7 games this year, that's a bad year for Tennessee football?
I think it would be expected. Not the standard, certainly, but I think that would be expected because I think 7-5.
That's what I would pick right now for the Vols. I think 7-5. And I think 7-5, it's a down year. And it's a year that I think Tennessee fans would be unhappy with. But I also don't think that means you get rid of Josh Heupel. Like, you've seen some of these programs have the quick trigger on coaches. I look specifically at Penn State. Like, do you think Penn State as a program over the next 10 years is going to be better under Matt Campbell than they were in the previous 10 years under James Franklin?
If they are, not by much.
Right, exactly. Like, that's what I would say with Tennessee is, like, Josh Heupel, maybe he isn't going to be somebody to get you to a national championship, but the grass isn't always greener. And I think you've seen enough from Josh Heupel, and when he's had the quarterback that he believes in and can actually play in his system, he's been in that conversation.
Which is honestly what Vols fans are hoping Faison Brandon will be. Because
Right.
like some services had him as the number 1 overall quarterback, a 5-star coming in, higher than George McIntyre.
Yeah.
So that's what they're hoping.
I think Brandon is probably, that's the timeline for Josh Heupel. If by the time Faison Brandon leaves, whether that's to the draft or, you know, if he ends up transferring, when Faison Brandon leaves Tennessee, that's when I think you can have a real judgment on Josh Heupel, because Nico was supposed to be that super talented quarterback who could come in and play this system. And he was okay. He was fine. They got to the college football playoff with him, but obviously he wasn't the fit that they needed him to be. Brandon needs to be that guy for Josh Heupel.
He really hasn't had it since Hendon Hooker in 22.
Right.
Because you saw how good that offense could be when he gets the quarterback that he wants.
Yep.
And honestly, Faison plays a lot like Hendon Hooker.
Right.
But is more highly thought of than Hooker was coming out of high school.
Right. So I think that's your timeline. I don't think Josh Heupel has his job on the line this year, but if you go 7-5 this year, I think next year is a huge year where you need to see Brandon become that quarterback and this team take a big step forward. I think, you know, we don't know how many playoff teams there are going to be in 2027, but this year, I think Tennessee can get away with not making the college football playoff. I don't know if you can go 3 straight years where this team isn't in.
I've always said that this is a bridge year to 27, and depending on how the 2027 season goes, I think if this year goes 7-5, the pressure is on Heupel in 27. That's what I think.
I would agree with that. And, you know, they're down a player now. Chaz Coleman has been medically disqualified, not going to play for the Volunteers this year. At the very least, you know, obviously disappointing to lose a player of that caliber, but they can move on and focus on football and know that he's not going to be there. So big year for the Vols, and we will see fall camp opens up soon in the next couple of weeks, and we'll have to see who ends up being the choice at quarterback. Faison Brandon has been the favorite in the clubhouse by most reports, but still time to figure it out before they open the season in early September. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. We got one more segment here in hour number 2. We're going to start getting ready for the NHL Draft coming up tonight in Buffalo. And again, you can listen into all the coverage right here on 102.5 The Game with Max Herz, Willie Donick, and others. And Max is going to join us at the top of the hour, previewing what the Predators could do tonight at number 10, recapping what Chris McFarland has already done as president of hockey operations and general manager, and much more. Looking forward to that. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelley, next man up here on 102.5 The Game. Next man up, 102.5 The Game. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelley, finishing up the second hour on this Friday. Coming up at 11, Max Herz from Preds Radio is going to join us, previewing tonight's NHL Draft. The Preds slated to pick 10th, so we'll talk to Max about who could be on the board for the Preds, who they could value, and of course, lots else going on around the offseason with Chris McFarland stepping in as the president of hockey operations and GM. Already has made a couple of trades, free agency next week. We'll get into all of it with Max Herz coming up in the final hour of the show. It's been a fun NHL offseason so far. I mean, for as much as we talked about this being a weak free agency class, it honestly might have elevated the chaos around the league because teams are trying to improve through trades. So we've seen tons of trades, big ones, of course, Bowen Byram getting traded for the 4th overall pick from Buffalo to Chicago. Of course, Brady Tkachuk getting traded to go play with his brother down in Florida. Did you see the Jason Robertson news from Elliot Friedman yesterday? I know you're not a huge hockey guy, but so Jason Robertson is a restricted free agent with the Stars, and it doesn't seem like Dallas is going to be able to keep him, but they're trying to get value, whether that's in a sign and trade or, just see where he wants to go. So they gave him permission to negotiate with Seattle. The Kraken offered him $15 million a year. Let me make sure I'm getting this right. I want to say it's 8 years, $15 million. Yes, that was the offer that Seattle made. And Jason Robertson said no. He said he would not sign to play in Seattle. Apparently,
what exactly is he wanting?
I think he just doesn't want to play for the Kraken. I don't know if it's that he doesn't want to live in Seattle. I also saw somebody put out there that the Seattle just passed a millionaire's tax where you're going to get taxed a much higher rate based on how much you make. I don't know. But that was one of the reports that came out. Here is what Elliot Friedman reported. According to multiple sources, the Seattle Kraken were given permission by Dallas to talk to Jason Robertson and offered him approximately $15 million per year on an 8-year deal. So $120 million contract, which is just ridiculous.
For a hockey player,
McDavid's making $12.5 million. So you can do the math there. Neither the Stars nor the Kraken agreed to comment, nor did Robertson's representative. It's believed the two teams had worked out some kind of trade before the permission was granted, apparently including Seattle's first-round pick, 7th overall in Friday's draft. So the Stars and Kraken had worked out a trade. All they needed was Robertson to agree, and he would not take 8 years and $120 million.
So I guess my question is, why is he so eager to leave Dallas? Because, I mean, they were one of the best teams in the NHL last year, but unfortunately got matched up against the Wild in the first round of the playoffs.
Well, I think it's Dallas probably isn't going to be able to pay him what he wants.
Okay.
Let's see. Dallas Stars
outside of not wanting to go to Seattle. I mean, that's a lot of money.
Yeah. I mean, Seattle wouldn't be my favorite place to live, right? But also, if you're getting paid 8 years, $120 million. So Dallas is projected to have $9 million in cap space. So yeah, I think it's probably that they just don't believe that they can make that deal. But
surely another team is going to go after him though.
But is somebody going to offer him that much money? I guess somebody might if Seattle was willing to do it.
Maybe another team that doesn't have the millionaire tax.
Right. Well, and that's become such a big thing in hockey, especially. And I know it's a thing in all states that you want to go to a place that has no state taxes. That's why Nashville can sell themselves that way. Florida, of course, Vegas sells themselves. But man, to turn down, I don't care how much you're getting taxed. If you're making $120 million, you're still
not exactly hurting for money.
Exactly. And so I don't know if that was the big reason, or maybe he just didn't want to go play for the Kraken. Maybe he didn't want to live in Seattle, but yeah, turned it down. 8 years, $15 million per. There's been Preds fans who have been texting in and saying the Preds should go make an offer for Jason Robertson. I wouldn't say it's completely out of the question.
How old's Jason Robertson?
He's only 26, I want to say.
So that would fit the timeline.
Right. He would be in that. I'll keep using it because I like the way Chris McFarland put it, the age bucket that the Preds
age
want.
Bucket, baby.
So yes, he will turn 27 next month. July 22nd, 99 is his birthday. So he will turn 27 next month. It would be somebody who could make your team a lot better right now and he would fit for that next core. Chris McFarland said yesterday that they're focused on trying to build around that next group of young players that we've been talking about, Martin and Surin and Molendijk, et cetera, et cetera. So I think Robertson would fit that timeline of what the Preds want to do. But man, yeah, you're already paying Stamkos a lot. You're paying Shea a lot. You've got a lot of big contracts on this team. And I know they have the cap space, but do you want to tie yourself to another big long-term contract when you've already got so many of these on the books?
See, I don't know enough about Chris McFarland because he's so new, if he would make a move like that or not. My gut tells me no. But at the same time, like, haven't we been talking about the Predators needing star power?
Yeah. But Robertson's a good player. Like, let me look at his stats here. Robertson's a good player, but, we were talking about Dan Moore earlier, and I'm not comparing Jason Robertson to Dan Moore specifically, but just
no, that would turn everybody off.
Dan Moore was the best tackle in a bad tackle class. Is Jason Robertson's a really good player, but is he the superstar that you would be paying him to be? Or is
I guess he's not technically a free agent, right?
He's a restricted free agent.
Oh, the talk has been how weak this free agency class is.
And he's the best option out there. But are you paying him? And he had 100 points 3 years ago.
Like, would you feel comfortable paying him as much as Seattle was willing to pay for a player that you don't think is going to be elite?
Yes. Are you paying him just because he's the best option available to go get? Or are you paying him because he is one of the best players in the league? And I think he's a really good player. He's an all-star level player, but McDavid's making 12.5, and no one's going to be Connor McDavid.
Yeah.
But it's like, can you justify paying him 15?
Which I don't think they would. I don't think they would offer him that much, but would another team be willing to do it? Yeah. That's why it would be so enticing, even with the millionaire tax. Like, if Seattle's willing to pay you that much more than what McDavid's getting.
Yeah, it's that saga is going to be interesting as we go through heading towards free agency next Wednesday. And tonight in the draft, McKenna going to be the pick at number 1, it seems. I don't think there's much intrigue there with
He's
Toronto.
About one of the only players I know in the draft.
Stenberg is the guy expected to go number 2. The question is just, where is he going? There's been a lot of conversation about, does San Jose want to move number 2? I think there's been some offers there. We'll see. Sharks have 2. They have 9. Preds are picking at 10. And I've seen so many names there. Let me see. I had the mock draft up from ESPN.com. This is from Rachel Krychak at ESPN. She has the Predators taking Ethan Belchets. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. A left winger from Windsor in the OHL. The Preds have also been connected to Wyatt Cullen. That is somebody I saw Alex Doherty tweeting about. So there's options there. As we said yesterday with Connor, like, picking at 10 is a lot different than picking at 5, where at 5, you can kind of narrow it down to 2, 3, 4 guys who are going to be in that conversation. Whereas at 10, it opens up a lot more just depending on what Chris McFarland believes is going to be a fit for the Predators. So 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Max Herz going to join us. Just saw him walk into the studio, going to talk with us.
He's going to educate all of us.
Right. Yeah. Me and Parker, we're doing our best.
In the dark
We're
here.
doing our best to keep the ship afloat, talking hockey over this last segment, but we've got the expert Max Herz coming in here, who will be anchoring the Preds draft coverage tonight right here on 102.5 The Game with Willie Donick starting at 6. So make sure you tuned in for that. But we'll get ourselves a little primer coming up next. Max Herz is going to join us for the full final hour of the show, talking Preds free agency, the draft, the trades, and much more. Excited to have Max on. We will talk to him coming up next. 615-737-1025. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelley, next man up, 102.5 The Game. Next man up, 102.5, The Game. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelley with you on this Friday morning, and we are now thrilled to be joined for the final hour of the show by Max Herz from Preds Radio. We are broadcasting live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Max, thanks for coming in. How's it going?
Hi, Jake. Hi, Parker. It's been too long, so
I know.
Thanks for having me.
We haven't had you on since the season ended, so we are glad to have you back. I hope you enjoyed Memphis last week. I listened to a couple of your calls while I was driving around. Well done. You got a 3-homer game at one point, didn't you?
Hey, you never know what you're going to see in minor league baseball. We had a 4-homer game against the Sounds, which was nuts. Joshua Baez, and Cardinals fans are all up on Joshua Baez.
Yeah.
Why is he not in the majors yet? He's this like crazy slugger who's like homer swing and miss, basically, which is not uncommon.
3 outcome.
But he was supposed to go to Vandy out of high school and got drafted out of high school. So it was my first time ever seeing him play, his first time ever playing against a Nashville team. He hit 4 homers, and I think the 4th homer was in the air for 8 seconds. It was a rainbow.
Wow.
It was crazy. But yeah, the Sounds had a 3-homer game. It was... I'll tell you what, Jeff Hem does an unbelievable job.
Yes,
calling those games, especially 6 in a row against the same team, is hard.
Yes,
so
and
Jeff does an amazing job. I hope people realize that, and I hope people listen to the Sounds on 94.9 The Fan all summer.
Yes, Jeff Hem, one of the greats, and they're playing the Braves team this week, the Stripers. So get out to First Horizon Park, listen in with Jeff. Going to be a lot of fun. But it is draft day today in the NHL. So Max comes back from doing some baseball and gets right into the swing of things here with the offseason. Before we get into the draft, Chris McFarland takes over, and he's already made a couple of moves, both with his former employer, the Colorado Avalanche. Let's start with the Ross Colton trade that came down last week. Brings him over, trades 2 third-round picks, along with Magnus Krona, the goalie they received in the Yaroslav Askarov trade. Thoughts on Ross Colton as a guy who can come in here and play both center and wing in the bottom 6 for this Preds squad?
Well, first off, I will say Krona is an irrelevant part of the trade. He's a free agent. He's most likely not even staying in North America. So that was just a contract numbers thing to have his expiring contract go away. I like Colton. That's an upside deal. That's why you have 3rd-round picks to go get a player like that. That's why they've built up all the 2nd, 3rd, 4th-round draft capital they have.
Yes, they have a ton. They have 2 seconds this year, 2 thirds, or maybe just 1 second this year, 2 thirds, and then 3 seconds next year, I want to say.
This year, 2 seconds.
2 seconds, yeah.
Down to 1/3 now. At one point, they had multiple, and they have 2/4 and currently 3/5.
Yes, they have a loaded cabinet of draft capital this year and next year, especially since the Vegas pick in the was that the Nick Hague trade? Conveyed to a second because they reached the Western Conference Finals.
I actually have to get some clarity on that because I believe that pick is now owed to 2 different teams. Because of trading that Vegas did in conditions. So I think that pick has gone to the Flames as part of the Rasmus Anderson trade. And if Vegas had won the cup, it would have become a first. So then it wouldn't have been an issue.
Gotcha.
So I think there's a chance that gets bumped a year, but I don't know exactly how that works.
Well, yeah, and they can't do it this year because John Tortorella cost them their 2nd-round pick by not doing media.
Yeah, that would have been helpful if they just said, hey, Preds are going to get that
Yeah,
pick.
You can just have that one this year.
Yeah, what a gracious violation of human decency to not do an interview. I love how mad people got about that.
People were very upset. I mean, and you did break the rules, but man, a 2nd-round pick and $100,000 fine? Like it was pretty steep penalties.
But also, like, he knew he wasn't going to be the coach after this end of the season. Like, he didn't owe anybody anything.
Right.
So maybe I'm the only media member in the world who didn't think that was an outrage. I thought it was funny.
I thought it was funny
think Torts is hilarious.
No, and he's not coming back. Honestly, I thought before that there was a good chance he might come back. I mean, you got the team to the cup final, but then, the discussion about Aiden Hill in the Stanley Cup final where somebody asked if he was going to bench Carter Hart, and he said it's the stupidest question he's ever heard when Carter Hart was setting records of how bad he was in the Stanley Cup final. Like, I think the slippery slope got away from him, and he will not be back. But talking about the Preds making trades, Colton comes in, and I think my first thought was younger Eric Haller replacement when you bring him in. Can play center, can play on the wing. But then you also go out and you get Jack Drury earlier this week in a trade, who is probably going to be your third line center as well. What were your thoughts on that one that obviously sent two younger guys who had some hopes, Svechkov and LaRue, back to the Colorado squad?
Yeah, so with what they're bringing in, and I didn't say anything about Colton. I answered the irrelevant parts of your last question. I will actually talk about Ross Colton now. I think Colton is a great high upside ad, and you have three different ways that it can go. One, you keep him, it goes well this year. Two, you trade him at the deadline if the Preds aren't in contention. Or three, you lock him up long-term with all the cap space you have, because presumably he will like playing here. There really aren't players who don't like playing here, especially ones who will almost definitely be a scheme fit, have a pre-existing relationship with the GM, and also Steven Stamkos is one of the best players he's ever played with, and he'll be happy to be back with him. So I think it's a no-lose situation to trade the 2 draft picks for Colton.
Yep.
I really do. And I hope people heard his interview on DVD, which was that earlier this week or last week?
I think it was last Friday,
okay,
Thursday?
Last Friday. Because he talked about his specific motivation, and that lines up with a contract year for him as he heads into his age 30 season. And this is a guy with a lot to prove and a lot of bounce back capability. You could tell with an answer he gave in that phone interview with Adam and Willie and Derek, he was really unhappy about his playing time last year. He said he was not one of the coach's guys, which I thought was a pretty telling thing to say, and the type of thing you don't usually hear from an NHL player, and I loved it. But he wants to position himself here as the go-to guy, and knowing what he brings and knowing Andrew Brunette as well as we do over the last 3 years, that is a player who Brunette is going to lean on and has a chance to even be a second-line guy at times on the Preds. So I think Colton is a great pickup. I think there's no risk there. I think if nothing else, you can get the picks you traded for him back if you want to.
Right.
And even if you don't, I think that's still a win to stabilize things for this year. And Chris McFarland is getting guys he trusts. And that's why they got Jack Drury. And they gave up 2 still pretty young recent first-round picks for him who are NHL players. But you have to think of Jack Drury as Colton Sissons, who's 26 years old, who's 6 years younger than the real Colton Sissons. And you have to think of him as a guy who could be a Pred for the rest of his career, because he's at the position where he needs a new contract. He's an RFA right now.
Yep.
The Avs weren't going to be able to give him what he was going to get other places, so he probably would have gotten offer sheeted if the Avs had tried to sneak him through on a lower contract. And he's someone who the Preds want to build around as their third or fourth line center. He's going to take a lot of draws for them. He's going to be a reliable guy. He's going to do the things that Sissons did for so long, that McCarron did a lot of the time, especially with Sissons gone last year. And you're seeing, with the lack of centers right now around the league, that is a player you have to give up capital to get. And they're probably going to have to give him pretty good money, which is fine, because the Preds have 20+ million in cap space right now, and the cap's going way up, and the Preds probably don't have a ton to spend their open cap on. So I think that's okay. But I think the thing people really want to know is why trade Svechkov and LaRue for that. After the initial sting of you love those players as fans.
Fan favorites, for sure.
They're fan favorites. They're guys that I loved getting to know, and I was hopeful that I would get to watch and announce their whole careers here. And it rarely happens that way, first of all. It's sad that it happened so early for 2 guys who were taken in the same draft, first round, 2021. But I think watching those guys get into the NHL and try and establish themselves in the NHL, I think you can see the flaws in their game that McFarland, who has absolutely no attachment to them, would make the clear evaluation of, these guys are not part of the cup core here. The guys who are part of the cup core here in his eyes, and he said this, are Brady Martin, Igor Surin, and on downward younger, that group.
Right. And that now Joachim Kimmel is the oldest first-round pick remaining on this roster, if I'm remembering correctly. And then you go and you see Molendyke and Surin and Matthew Wood. That's kind of the core that they're trying to build around. And with LaRue and Svechkov, I saw there was a lot of people upset about this on social media over the past few days. And I get it. LaRue was an agitator, one of those guys that you love to have on your team. Svechkov, his interviews are just always classic. But they were disappointing this year. I mean, LaRue was obviously injured to start the season, had to go down to Milwaukee. Svechkov, I think there was a lot of expectations on him heading into this year, and he just didn't live up to it. So I think you're right that McFarland being that outside perspective coming in is just like, hey, these guys haven't performed. I've got a guy in Colorado that I feel like can be an instant impact player right now, but also can be part of the long-term future of this team.
Yeah. And look, as someone who watched every shift these guys took, like there are flaws in their game.
Yep.
Like I said, LaRue needs to be a guy who scores around the net, and he never really did that more than once every few weeks in the NHL at most. He wasn't getting better at tipping pucks. He wasn't finding himself in those rebound situations, and that was frustrating as someone who wanted to see him succeed. So I get that completely. Svechkov, just because he's a center, I think some evaluators would have been a little more patient with.
Right.
I don't see a problem with that personally. He just didn't do enough this year. He wasn't good on the wall. He wasn't winning battles. He wasn't driving possession. His game wasn't maturing. He was losing pucks. You would see moments, like there would be days either in morning skates or in practice when his shot was electric. How often did we see that in games, though? It wasn't translating over. He wasn't creating space for himself. He wasn't generating chances. He wasn't good enough on faceoffs, and that's something that comes with time. But I think him developing into a bottom six defensive center, you might as well just go get Drury and give him 4 years.
Right. That's what Chris McFarland said yesterday about Jack Drury is he can be an elite defensive forward, which is something that you need on those bottom two lines, and he can help on the penalty kill as well. So you're getting a more proven commodity in Jack Drury than what you had with those two younger guys.
Yeah, and I don't think LaRue nor Svechkov are big special teams guys long term. They both killed penalties this year. I think they were both good on the PK. But I think the Preds proved this year they could put almost anybody on the PK and get production out of them.
615-737-1025 is our phone number. If you have any questions for Max, he is with us for the full final hour of the show, talking about the Preds offseason. Of course, draft night tonight in Buffalo. Preds currently slated to pick 10th in the first round. Our phone and text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Again, 615-737-1025. Jake Lyman, Max Herz, Parker Kelley with you on your Friday morning. Next man up, 102.5 The Game. Next man up, 102.5 The Game. Jake Lyman, joined in studio by Max Herz from Preds Radio, all the way up until the end of the show at noon. Parker Kelley at the controls. Getting ready for draft night. The Preds picking 10th tonight in the first round. They'll have many more picks throughout the weekend in Buffalo. We'll talk about what the Preds could do at number 10. But in general, Max, it's been kind of a crazy start to the offseason so far. Brady Tkachuk gets traded. He's now playing with his brother down in Florida. I wanted to get your thoughts on the Buffalo-Chicago trade. Bowen Byram going to Chicago, and the Blackhawks send back not just the 4th overall pick, but another pick in the second round, along with another player. Felt like more than you expected Bowen Byram to get on the trade market.
Yeah, well, prices are high right now for players. Good picks are going for players who maybe on paper don't deserve it.
Right.
But yeah, the top 10 picks are flying around like candy this week. So it's I think it's great for the league because it's going to be not as crazy of a free agency period with the cap going way up. A lot of guys have been locked up. So I think players getting traded and having some say in where they go, I think it's exciting for the NHL. And I think it's cool that it's all happened at once too, with the draft kind of providing this trade deadline in the offseason.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's been really exciting for the league. I think it's great for the game. I think it's good when big name players change teams. I think it's great when you have these trades to judge and it's like, man, Bowen Byram better be their number one defenseman next year and be great. Otherwise, like GM's job is on the line. So I think it's the type of talk that you haven't really felt around the NHL in the US that I think these trades can create, give you a little more of an NBA feel.
No, that is true. And we were talking about it earlier that kind of the thin free agent class that doesn't have a ton of big names at the top has led to teams needing to trade to add to their rosters and feel like they can build cup contenders. So you're seeing a lot of big names flying around. You mentioned top 10 picks. The 9th pick right in front of the Preds has changed hand twice within the last 8 days. Was included in the Brady Tkachuk trade, and then the Senators sent it to San Jose. So the Sharks now pick in front of the Preds tonight.
Yeah, I think the Sharks are a big winner this week, and look, they might still have another move. You never know if they're going to pick at both 2 and 9. So I think Eklund for the 9th overall pick, going from San Jose to Ottawa and San Jose getting the pick, I think that might be my favorite trade of the week.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, San Jose to have what they have and to be picking at 2 and 9, that's a really good spot to be in. And winning the lottery gets you that. But I'm fine with them parting with Eklund. Some people still like him as a prospect. I don't think he's fully bloomed the way they hope he would. So the thing for the Predators though is they're now right in front of you, and almost one of those picks will almost definitely be a defenseman. They're probably going to take Ivar Stenberg, who's the second forward at number 2. But if they are still ahead of you at number 9, and there's only one defenseman you like left out of the 4 or maybe 5 who deserve to go top 10, one of them's probably going.
Yeah, and that's a good point. And San Jose, you talked about that core that they've got. Of course, Macklin Celebrini at the center of that. Will Smith. Who'd they pick last year? There was another big name at the top of the draft. Michael Misa. So, yeah, they've got the young core and now 2 top 10 picks to pair with that as well. This draft, different from last year's draft, at least from what I'm seeing, where last year it felt like Schaefer was number 1, and then it was like 7 guys who all were kind of in that next tier, and teams just kind of picked from there. It does feel like it's McKenna, then Stenberg, and then kind of a tier after that in this year's draft.
Yeah, it's interesting because first of all, it never goes the way you think it's going to go.
That is true.
NHL. So there's this group of 5 defensemen.
Yeah.
That I am really hopeful one of them can last to 10 for the Preds, unless there's a big surprise at forward. And there are a couple of forwards in Tynan Lawrence and Wyatt Cullen who I think the Preds could like at 10. And almost certainly one of those guys will still be there at 10.
Yep.
I actually think 10 is a good spot to be in because I think 10, 11, 12 are the last places where those premium guys could sit.
Yeah.
So I think they're going to get somebody good. The question for me is, will any of the 5 defensemen still be there? Chase Reed definitely won't be there. He's the number 1 D in the draft. He was Brady Martin's teammate this year with the Sioux. Then there's Carson Carrolls, Keaton Verhoff, who probably won't be there, but are defensemen with good acclaim. Then you have Daxon Rudolph from Prince Albert, another defenseman.
Yep.
And also the wild card in this whole thing, Albert Schmitz, who I have seen play on television more than any of these guys because he played in the World Juniors and the Olympics for Latvia.
Wow.
And I think he's such an intriguing prospect. The Predators definitely had tons of eyes on him because they had big brass at World Juniors. And I think if they get him at 10, I think that's a big win. So I really like him. He's big. He makes plays with the puck. I think he would be an awesome pick at 10, but I have no way of knowing what the Predators think about him.
Right. Yeah. The NHL draft, once you get past those first couple of prospects, it really is kind of what flavor do you like? And we'll see Chris McFarland. This will be kind of our first look at what he likes to do as a decision maker in the draft. Now, of course, the scouting process and all of that was done under Barry Trotz's watch, but McFarland, Rob Blake, and others, now they're the decision makers, and we'll get our first data point of what he likes to do when it comes to drafting.
Yeah, and based on what McFarland has said in his few interviews so far as the Preds GM over the past few weeks, he has really dove into evaluating the potentials at pick 10, and will do the best he can the rest of the way. But his interest is definitely in the pro side,
Right.
And he'll trust Jeff Kelty, the Preds assistant GM, who's been with the franchise since day one, who's still here leading the scouting department, which was already running their draft evaluation by the time McFarland was hired. And was, long before, obviously, they're doing it.
Right.
But it's a situation where he's going to rely on the pre-existing guys who've made the list for the team, and he's going to come in. He's going to know what's going on, but he's going to trust their evaluations as someone who didn't have in-person eyes on a lot of these guys all year.
Right. And he made the point during his press conference yesterday that being with the Avalanche, they weren't looking at the top 10 guys all that much. You know, they knew they weren't going to be picking in that bucket of players. So you're right that a lot of this is going to come from the previous staff, Jeff Kelty, and the scouting staff that's been there under Barry Trotz.
Yeah. I'm curious to see how it goes. I think the Preds will be in good shape at 10. I think the teams in front of them are going to determine what they have to do.
Right.
Which that's obviously how the draft works. But I think more so than ever, it's about who gets to us and then their head-to-head evaluations of those guys, which is predetermined.
Yes. And, looking through some of these mock drafts, you look at the top centers out there and forwards, McKenna, winger, Stenberg at the top, Malhotra, the center, probably going to be top 5 picks. And then it's a lot of defensemen. We can see some of those wingers that you mentioned as well, Cullen, Lawrence, and then Belchetz as well, who will be a teammate with Riker Lee at Michigan State next year too.
Yeah, and basically all these American guys are going from junior teams to college teams next year, other than McKenna, who went a year early and did his 1 year of college.
Yes.
And we'll go to the NHL next year.
Yes, with the Toronto Maple Leafs, who will be on the clock coming up in just a few hours. Again, you could listen into all of the NHL draft coverage right here on 102.5 The Game with Max Herz, Willie Donick, and others. Preds currently slated to pick 10th tonight in Buffalo. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. If you have any questions for Max, we'll try and get to those over the next 30 minutes. But free agency also coming up right around the corner on Wednesday. We'll talk about what Max's thoughts are on what the Predators offseason could look like moving forward, who could be brought in, maybe some other trades coming down the pike. 615-737-1025. Jake Lyman, Max Herz, Parker Kelley. Next man up, 102.5 The Game. Next man up, 102.5 The Game. Jake Lyman, Max Herz from Preds Radio, and Parker Kelley with you. We got a couple more segments on this Friday. It is NHL Draft Day up in Buffalo. Preds picking 10th overall. And again, you can listen to all your draft coverage right here on 102.5 The Game with Max and Willie Donick coming up at 6 o'clock. But Max, we are within a week of free agency starting as well. And the Preds do have a lot of cap space. But as we were talking about, this free agency class, there's not a whole lot of big names out there. And even if there were, I don't know if that would be the path that the Preds would look to go down. What are your thoughts on how the Predators are going to attack this offseason paired with some of the trades they've already made?
I think it's going to be more trades like that, or acquisitions like that. I think it's going to be guys that they can trust, that are safe bets, that are guys who have the potential to stick around. And I would love for them to be in the conversation for some of the big names. I don't know if that's in the cards right now, but I think it's about solidifying next year's team and in a different way, continuing what Barry Trotz had started and had made his mission of keeping the team competitive while they get the prospects for the next contention window ready.
Yes. And that's what Chris McFarland said, is that they're trying to build around that young core that they have coming up through the system. Jason Robertson is the big name that's out there, and the Elliot Friedman report, we were talking about it in the last hour, of he turned down 8 years, $120 million from Seattle in a move that would have been made, a sign and trade between Dallas and Seattle. Is that somebody that you think would fit what the Preds are trying to do? Only 26 years old. He'll be 27 next month, but obviously would come with a large price tag, not just in money, but also in the capital you'd have to give up to get him.
I mean, I would love for the answer to be yes. I don't know. I think he's just at the top end of the age bracket where they'd want to acquire somebody,
right?
If he is in it, but I think it would rev things up right away in a really fun way. But I don't think the Predators want to give up the assets that it would. I don't think the contract would be an issue. I think they are willing to pay Robertson what he wants. They have the room for it. I don't think they want to give up definitely their first this year.
Yeah.
Probably a future first also. Maybe someone like Brady Martin. I mean, you're sacrificing a lot of the things you have banked toward that contention window,
right,
to bring in someone who is as much a contender right now as he will be when the window would hit as well. So
right.
I don't know what. I think it would be a little too in between. Unfortunately, I really would love for it to happen.
And maybe we see something today with Jason Robertson. Again, it seems like there's been talks with a lot of different teams. I know St. Louis, I guess, was rumored as well, but he didn't want to go there. So we'll have to see if there's anything that comes down before the draft tonight. Let's get to some questions on the text line for Max here. 4312 asks, Max, with how many teams are overpaying in trades, do you think Ryan O'Reilly could bring he says franchise-changing haul in a trade? I'll just say, what type of haul do you think O'Reilly could get back given the trade market we've seen
right now?
Yeah.
Maybe a big prospect in a second-round pick, or maybe a first. I don't think they're going to trade him this cycle, though.
Yeah, he's the one veteran player that I think you could get a decent haul back for that does not have trade protection in his contract, right? And so he's a piece that I think a lot of people are looking at. Do you have any feel on how they might handle the other veterans? I know Jonathan Marchessault, there's been a lot of talk of whether he's going to be a fit moving forward. He does have trade protection, though, so it might be tougher to move him.
Yeah, I think Chris McFarland has presented the situation to all those guys, and I think the message to them is go out and play well at the start of the year and make me keep you.
Yeah.
Like, and make everybody want to stay. Because if they do play well, I think he will reward them. And it's really it's so funny. It's really not too different than the way Barry Trotz managed it too.
Yeah.
It's interesting to see the similarities they have, and they are very good friends, McFarland and Trotz. And I just think it's interesting to see the continuation of the way the Predators had been run, even with fresh eyes on it.
Yeah, and I think you could maybe even make the parallel to the coaching staff as well. Chris McFarland talked about this yesterday. He said he wants to see how Andrew Brunette and his coaching staff operate through training camp and into the start of the season. I think you could look and see a lot of GMs that would have come in here and said, I'm going to clean house, bring in my own guy. I do like that Chris McFarland is giving Andrew Brunette the chance to show, hey, I can be the right coach for this team moving forward.
Yeah, I actually think that was an easy decision. With the addition of Luke Richardson as the defenseman coach, I think they definitely earned another year. I think they're the right group for this team right now. I think there's good cohesion between the coaches and the players. I think it would have been a mistake to make a coaching change, especially with how late the Preds brought McFarland in. I do not think that would have been a good move. So I'm very happy that they're sticking with the coaches.
Well, and I think what you saw over the last few months of the season gives you hope that Andrew Brunette maybe finally got things to click with this group they brought in. Obviously, the big moves 2 summers ago and the disappointment of the 2024 season led to a slow start in 2025, but it felt like things were finally starting to get where they wanted it to be. It might not make sense to just flush all that away to bring in somebody else.
Yeah, and the continuity makes it easy to coach. And with all the changes the Preds made and the veterans they brought in, that was a really big challenge to get guys in places where they can all succeed. And though it has been far from perfect, I think the fact, like you said, that last year's team got to the point they did was a major credit to the coaching staff. And I think it was an underratedly good job by the coaches to perform as well as they did last season.
And they almost were able to sneak into the playoffs after being the worst team in hockey early in December. So we'll see Andrew Brunette back out there trying to see if he can start to get this thing moving back in the right direction in 2026-27. Talking to Max Herz from Preds Radio, draft is tonight. Somebody else going to be added to this young core. Wanted to ask you about maybe the expectations for this season for some of these big guys. Brady Martin made the team out of camp last year. Obviously was only up for a couple of weeks before being sent back to juniors. Do you see him playing a role early on this year for the Preds?
Yeah, I think he'll get a shot. I think next week is actually a big week for him. It's development camp, and all the Preds prospects will be back here. And I think Martin needs to be the captain of that camp. I think he needs to be one of the 2 or 3 best players at that camp, along with Igor Surin. And I just think it's time for him to go and get it. Hopefully he's back close to fully healthy after all he went through with his shoulder this year in the World Juniors and getting back to the OHL and all that. And he had an interesting year because he proved a lot toughness wise, and he proved a lot in terms of how much of a winning player he is. Team Canada went down the chute garbage without him in the World Juniors. And from the Preds perspective, not caring whether or not that junior team wins or not, it's great to see that because that is why the Preds drafted him. So I think next week you want to see him kind of large and in charge. You want to see him make some plays, and you want to see him show, hey, I'm the NHL guy at this camp, and I'm the best prospect in the org. So I think everything is on the table for him. I mean, we had these same conversations last year. It's determined by his play. So, and last year he earned 3 games. He got his first NHL point. This year he'll have an opportunity to earn more.
A couple other guys coming up through the system. Tanner Molendyk, obviously, is a player that Preds fans have been excited about on the blue line. Did not make it up to the NHL last year. What do you see for him in this upcoming season? Can he take that next step and be a staple at the next level?
Yeah, this is a big summer for him. He has aged out of development camp since he has a full pro season, so he's no longer part of that. So he won't be here next week. I think going into training camp next year, you want to see his speed really be an impact. You want to see him be a puck mover. You want to see him leading breakouts. And I think he's another guy who will be given opportunities to make the team out of camp for sure. And it's a little disappointing that he still hasn't made his NHL debut, but you got to remember he's a late first-round pick and maybe was a little bit overhyped with how good he was in his draft plus 1 year in Medicine Hat and for Team Canada. So if he doesn't make his NHL debut next season, that is a big disappointment because it's time for that. But I'm looking forward to the improvements Molendyk can make this summer after his first pro season maybe didn't go the way he wanted it to in some respects for Milwaukee last year.
615-737-1025 is the phone number. Skylar texted in kind of in the same vein. Is this Riker Lee's last season in college? He's ready to see his offensive skill on the Preds.
It might be. Yeah. I mean, and Michigan State is loaded this year.
Yeah.
Like they are loaded. Like if you go by after this draft, if you go by draft order where everybody was picked, Riker Lee might be like the 10th highest draft pick on his own team. And he was a first round pick.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So I think if he has another year like he did last year, that could definitely be a sign in the spring situation. But yeah, they're definitely monitoring him, and I think that's a possibility for sure.
615-737-1025. Last call for phones for Max. We'll get to some more of your questions in the final segment. And also some pretty big Preds news this week. Pekka Rinne going to be inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame. We'll get Max's thoughts on that to wrap up the show. Jake Lyman, Max Herz, Parker Kelley, next man up. 102.5 The Game. Next man up, 102.5 The Game. Jake Lyman, Max Herz, Parker Kelley, wrapping up the show on this Friday. I wonder if Adam Vingan is like a dancer to this song. If Adam's listening, let me know.
And pumping his fist in the car.
Because I was just talking about how I did not realize this was Duke basketball's like anthem that they play in stadium until I went to the ACC tournament a few years ago, and they were all dancing to it, just fists in the air over the top. So, Adam, let me know if that's something that you're into. Wrapping up the show here with Max, talking Preds. It is NHL Draft Day, and again, you can listen to all NHL Draft coverage right here on 102.5 The Game with Max and Willie Donnet coming up at 6 o'clock. Quickly here, Brandy on the text line wants to give you props, Max, for completely and accurately guessing the Stanley Cup final and winner. So well done. I guess, did you pick Hurricanes over Golden Knights?
No, I did not pick the Golden Knights.
Well, you picked the Hurricanes. There you go.
I had the Hurricanes. I proudly was one of the 3 voters for Rod Brind'Amour for Coach of the Year.
There you go.
It was my first time getting to vote for Coach of the Year, which was exciting. And
Rod the bod.
I talked with some players who had played for the coaches I was considering, and it's the coach adjudged to have the greatest impact on his team's success. And to me, this was before the playoffs. To me, it's Brind'Amour, and I'm gonna have trouble not voting for him every year with the unique style they play. Yeah. And like I don't know, have we ever felt the love to a coach like that after a Stanley Cup win?
Yeah, I don't know.
It's he's the face of the franchise,
right?
So he played there and won the cup there as a captain, so that helps. But to me, like the way they play, that is coaching more so than any other NHL team. And I'm not the reason Lindy Ruff lost, by the way. John Cooper was not on my ballot at all, and Lindy Ruff was second. So
I'm trying to think of it like the last time people celebrated a coach that much for winning. It might have been Barry Trotz in 18 with the Caps for finally getting one. But I can't think of any more recently than that.
That's a good nomination. Yeah, I think like last 20 years post-lockout, I think it's those two.
Yeah, because, I mean, Trotz obviously so much time in the league and had never been able to actually get the cup until that 2018 Capitals team. Jeff on the text line as well says, Max, I thought one game of watching O'Hara made Joachim Kimmel expendable. Do you think Kimmel is the next guy out, and what value does he have?
It's a good question. I would like to think you could get a good asset for him. I still think there are characteristics of Kimmel that are worth sticking with. And maybe it's just because we haven't seen him in the NHL as much as we saw Svechkov and Leroux.
Yeah.
But I still dream on that shot. I still think he can be a goal scorer, or at least deserves a chance to prove that he can be a goal scorer in the NHL. And like, he can't be a fourth liner though. Like,
right.
You got to play him. You got to find a way to get him on the power play. So I'm trying to think about it through the O'Hara lens too. They do just have a lot of right shot forwards.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
And they just traded away 2 of their young left shot forwards. So we'll see where Kimmel fits. I definitely think he is a trade candidate. I wonder if there are teams who like him. You know, I think there have to be pro scouts who have seen him hammer one-timers on the power play who think this guy's got a chance.
Yeah. And, we talked about it. He is the furthest back first-round pick still on the roster after the trade of Leroux and Svechkov.
And he's 22.
Which is crazy. Yeah, that's crazy. So we'll see if he fits into this young core that the Preds are trying to build. Still lots of dominoes left to fall this offseason. Again, it is NHL Draft Day, 6 o'clock start tonight in Buffalo, and the Predators picking 10th. Before we let you go, Pecorine going to be inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame. What was your reaction when you saw that news as Pekka becomes the 4th Finnish player all time to be inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame?
Yeah, pretty amazing. And I think representing Finland is a big reason why he got in, to represent the Preds, to represent Finland. For that to just get dropped on us on a weekday in the summer was so awesome. And to go in with Carey Price too, I think is really cool, as 2 goalies who had no haters. Like,
very true.
I think that is the perfect goalie tandem mate for him to. It's cool that 2 goalies go in any class. That doesn't happen a ton. But 2 guys of the same era who were so good, who had bumps along the way and didn't win Stanley Cups, to have them both go in together and to hear them speaking about each other, I think was so amazing. And it's the ceremonies in November. It's, first of all, if anyone wants to go, I would encourage Preds fans to go to Toronto for the weekend. We got to represent for Pekka. So it's for him to be joining Shea Weber in the Hall of Fame. David Poyle's in there too, but like Pekka is almost his own category. Number retired, statue, Pred for life. This is going to be a special one.
It was really cool to see the news and see his reaction to it. And of course, he was on with Robbie and Joe earlier this week too, and talked about the honor of, I mean, it's rare to see in any sport. We were just talking about all the player movement in hockey. We were talking about some of the NBA trades. It's rare to see anybody spend their entire 15-year career with one team. And it's cool that Pekka is only a Pred going into the Hockey Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I mean, he's the best player in team history. So it's amazing that he's going to get in there, especially since you never knew it was a sure thing.
Right. Did you hear on that interview with Robbie and Joe that he still plays beer league?
He better. Gotta stay fresh.
How crazy would that be if you're going out and you're just like, I'm playing some beer league tonight. Oh, who's in goal for the other team? Pekka Rinne. Oh, all right.
Has he given up a single goal?
I would love to know the answer to that question. I saw somebody was tweeting. It was like, all right, how many beers do they make him have before? Like, that should be the question. It's like, all right, Pekka, you can play in net, but you've got to have like 6 beers before you step out on the ice.
I feel like he'd still be good.
Oh, 100%. But at least it would make it possible, right? It would make it possible to have just these, Joe Schmoes be able to score on Pekka Rinne. They were saying, Joe and Robbie were saying, I think it's true. He should have to play forward. Like, have him go out there and play forward. I think it's unfair to have Pekka Rinne, a Vezina winner, in net in a beer league game.
Yeah, we got to get the stat sheet, see what's going on out there.
Yeah, that's true. That needs to be, we need to FOIA that for Pekka Rinne. Like, get his beer league stats since he's been out there.
If anybody's scored on him, get them on the radio.
That is true.
About it.
Yeah, 615-737-1025. Text us if you've scored on Pekka Rinne in a beer league game. That's about all the time we have today. Max, appreciate you coming on. Big night tonight. And again, we'll be sure to tune in 6:00 tonight with Willie. Should be a fun night over there at the BetMGM Lounge.
Yeah, all Preds fans are invited to come join us. It's a free draft party at the BetMGM Sports Lounge on the 2nd floor at Bridgestone Arena. You go in on 5th Avenue by Demumbria and take the stairs up. Going to be a lot going on. We'll be there on the radio. Preds pick 10th, so that pick should come probably sometime between 6:45 and 7.
Perfect.
We'll be on 102.5 The Game for at least 2.5 hours all night.
Love it. Love it. Again, NHL Draft night tonight. Chris McFarland's first chance as the president of hockey ops for the Preds. They pick 10th, and you'll have all the coverage right here on 102.5 The Game. Or again, go on out to Bridgestone Arena. Enjoy it. It's a Friday night. Get out to the BetMGM Sports Lounge and celebrate with the rest of Smashville. But that about wraps things up for us this week. Monday, we will be back at 9 a.m. to react to everything that happens over the weekend. Got World Cup going on. Norway, France coming up at 2:00 today. Excited for that and much more. We'll react to, of course, everything going on with the NHL Draft. The Preds with plenty of picks, not just tonight, but over the entire weekend. Big thanks to Max for coming on with us. And that wraps things up. Chase and Big Joe are coming up next with Nick Frazier in for Chase. You're listening to 102.5 The Game.